Hunter Biden has been found guilty just today, breaking news. Guilty of all gun charges. He's been basically found guilty on all three charges in his federal gun trial, becoming the first son of a sitting US president to be criminally convicted. Prosecutors said Biden, 54, lied about his drug use on a federal form when he bought a handgun in 2018. What were your guys' reactions today, and ladies' reaction today to this when you saw this, and with the backdrop of how they've been treating Trump?
Well, what actually happened to the? Didn't he have tax failure to pay his taxes, and that went absolutely nowhere? And I guess that's because if they actually investigated that, they'd probably find that President Biden was pretty complicit. And you've got, a sitting, well, not a sitting president, but a president from before Trump who was found guilty on, was it 32 or 34 charges, and has now been silenced during an election campaign in the US. I mean, this is unheard of. And yet this person, just gun charges, and what's going to happen with this? Nothing.
Look, as a libertarian, I'm actually all in favour of people being able to use guns whilst on drugs. I think that's just Darwinism, Darwinism 101. Okay, they're going to take themselves out of the gene pool pretty quickly. I do think the contrast between how he gets treated versus how Trump is treated in his sentencing, which of course hasn't happened yet, is going to be watched very, very closely. Let's not forget as well that what Biden's been found guilty of is very straightforward crimes that apply to everybody. What Trump has now been found guilty of was actually quite a novel crime that they kind of had to completely twist and reuse the law in a very, very novel way that it's never been used before in order to get those convictions on him. So one of these things is not like the other. But I think we can also expect that the politicization of Trump's conviction is going to be extreme. And I don't know. I mean, part of me just says, okay, what if they do lock him up?
But with every time, exactly. When Trump was convicted, when you look at it, what happened? His popularity skyrocketed. He ended up getting $200 million within a week for funding for his campaign. So bring on all the things that you're doing to this poor man. I mean, it's a concerted effort to destroy him, and yet all it's doing is lifting his popularity. His trial was run in a blue state on purpose with, I think it was predominantly female black jurors. Was that not the case, who are pretty much anti-Trump? They've statistically, not because I'm trying to be racist, but they statistically wanted a juror that would go against Trump and convict him. And I think I believe the judge told the jurors...
Basically instructed them how to find, which makes you wonder why there's a jury at all. I just think it'd be hilarious if they threw him in prison and they have to hold the next presidential inauguration in Guantanamo Bay. I just think that'd be brilliant. And then as soon as he's actually inaugurated, he gets to pardon himself, and then we just get to watch the show.
Yeah.
Look, Joel, one issue on this.
Yeah, sure.
This goes back to, remember, Hunter's laptop for the last election, right? Now, this again crosses over some of the other subjects we covered tonight. That was actually a fact. And yet that was being suppressed. It was being censored. Discussion of it was being shadow banned by a couple of large tech giants. And that had affected the results of the last US presidential election.
This is a brilliant point. Everybody listen. This is a brilliant point.
It affected the last... So where free speech was being attacked, and that subverted the US presidential election. That is the danger that we have going forward if these large tech giants are allowed to censor what they want to, and censor and shadow ban certain ideas and certain points. This is the danger that we have. And everything about that Hunter laptop was 100% truth. And yet the facts were hidden from the American people, which I think affects the legitimacy of the 2020 election, which has a huge bearing.
But you can't say that, Craig. You can't say, that was a stolen election, and which three-lettered agencies asked for that to occur.
It's actually worse than that. I hadn't made this connection until you just said that, and I suspect maybe you haven't quite made the connection either. But I thought this is where you were going. I thought this is a brilliant point. I haven't thought of this. Hunter Biden's laptop story, was suppressed, which was election interference. Trump has just been found guilty of election interference for trying to pay off Stormy Daniels and not have her story break. How can you find him guilty of election interference and not turn around and do the same thing to everyone that suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story?
Exactly.
Literally. I don't think anyone's made this point previously, but has anyone noticed that the last two presidential elections, we've seen two October surprises from two different Aussies? So one was obviously Julian Assange in 2016 with the leaks from Hillary Clinton and what happened there. But then the other one in 2020 was... the writer for the New York. What is it? Who was the one that wrote the journalist? We all know this journalist. She wrote the actual article that released the story of Hunter Biden.
Miranda Devine.
Miranda Devine. Like two little Aussies just sort of prodding in the American elections. I just thought it's really cool because after the last few years, I think it's important to remind the Americans, hey, there are some really solid soldiers out there that are actively on your side. The whole free world is behind Trump. At least the conservative forces are anyway. Even though we have commissars here that do this sort of thing, but yeah, no, I'd sort of throw that out there. I was going to say to close off this topic, these things do help Trump. As we all know, the things that the attacks that Craig experienced only built a following. You barely had a following before the COVID period, and similarly, I didn't exist. Topher had been around in the alternative media space. Natalie, you were just the dentist.
I was just a mere dentist.
Yeah,
yes.
like just hanging out. But now we've built a community, and I guess